pastor, transformation coach, and also a counseling psychologist. I currently serve as a discipleship pastor at ICC Kiserian, and I'm also privileged to be a member of KCPF.
Great.
And thank you for having me here today.
Most welcome. Let's have an exciting time discussing family.
I look forward.
So tell us about family. Why family? Why are the professionals concerned about family? We think they should be behind desks and offices, but KCPF puts a lot of emphasis on the issue of family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Family is one of the most important institutions in the human history. And it's an institution that actually is the bedrock of our society. And that's why KCPF is so focused and interested and supports and promotes family, because family is the unit that upon which as individuals, as members of the society, when we come from a place that is stable as family, it helps us to be productive and fruitful in our mandate as individuals, but also as a nation.
Great.
Yes.
A very interesting perspective on how that societal aspect ties into professional vocation.
Absolutely.
And how the safety of that needs to be protected by everyone, including the professionals.
Yes.
So when we see the word protection, we imagine then that there is a threat.
Absolutely.
So tell us about the threat to family and why it needs to be protected.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always like tracing the origins, going back to how family came about. So in order to understand even why the attack. So as I mentioned that family is an institution which was founded by God himself. And the first human crisis in the Bible is when God made a statement and said, "It is not good for man to be alone."
Why do you call it a crisis?
It was a crisis. Now, Matthew, after everything God had created, he said, "It is good." And then he created man in his own image. And man had this perfect fellowship with God. He was the CEO of the Garden of Eden, the captain of all creation. So he had job security. He had everything going on well for him. But then God shows up in Genesis 2:18 and he says, "It is not good for man to be alone." Now, if anyone else shows up and says something is not good, we might, it's debatable. But if God himself, the one who created everything, shows up and says, "It is not good," we need to pay attention. And so, by doing that, that's why I call it the human crisis. So the crisis was that man was alone. He needed a relation. He needed,
good man was alone.
Yes, the good man was alone. And so he needed a relationship. And that's how the crisis is. But now, God didn't stop there. It's interesting that he gave man an assignment to name all the animals. Man wasn't aware that he was alone because God saw a need that he didn't see at that time. And so what does God do? He gives him an assignment to name all the animals. And this man starts naming animal after the other. Then he notices they are pairs. Now, before this man will take a step to find a solution for himself, what does God do? Puts him to sleep and then conducts the first surgery in human history, and removes a rib and creates a helper. And hence the first family was born. So family is God's idea, and we cannot disapprove his wisdom in establishing an institution called family, because that was paramount and important for the role that man was to serve.
Okay.
Yes.
Threats to family.
Now, threats to family. One of the threats to family, one is philosophical. Philosophical in the sense that, why do people want to get married? Now, before then, when God created this pair, this family, everything was fine until now the fall happened. And now when the fall happened, the question is, how did it happen? There was an enemy from the beginning who came in the picture, and you know the story. Eve was tempted, gave the fruit to the husband, and then there was a ripple effect. And the ripple effect, and allow me to mention this. So when God had created this man, he gave him 5 foundational relationships. The first relationship was between him and God. The second relationship between him and himself. The third relationship was between him and other humans, and that's where the wife came in. The fourth relationship was between him and things. And when I say things, I mean living or non-living things. The fifth one was between him and the future.
Wow.
Okay? So him and God is the faith factor. Him and himself is the fortitude factor.
Tell us about it.
I'm coming there. Him and other humans is the fellowship factor. And then him with things is the fruition, from the word fruitful, fruition factor. And then the him and the future is the footprint factor. You see? So he was meant to function well in these 5 foundational relationships. So when we're talking about family, we're talking about the third relationship between him and the humans, the fellowship factor. Okay? Of which now the enemy comes in, tempts them, and they eat of this fruit. And these 5 relationships crumble. Okay? Because initially God told Adam, if you eat of this tree, you shall surely die. And actually all these relationships were affected. And this is consistent with what we read in John 10 about the enemy's mission statement.
Yeah.
To come to steal, kill
and
to destroy.
Yeah.
Because man had it well.
Yeah.
These 5 things were going on well. Until he shows up, and now that affected not only just the family, but it affected every other relationship. You see,
Yeah.
every other relationship. So the enemy is I call him the cosmic enemy of the family unit, because family is God's idea.
Yeah.
And therefore, because he's anti-God and he's not a match for God, he'll go for God's creation and God's ideology.
So what you're telling us is that the greatest risk, the backbone of the risk to family,
Yes,
is the enemy.
it's the enemy.
It's anything enemy.
Enemy.
Help us pinpoint some of the threats.
Now, how
as
does
we
he
would
do
see
that?
them. Yeah.
Yes. How does that look like?
Yeah.
First, ideologies. Altering, or rather ideologies, when I say ideologies, I mean the attempt to distort what family was meant to be. So those are philosophies, okay?
Yeah.
So let me give an example of philosophy. So as God established this family, there was a structure that the husband is the head of the family, and the wife is the helper, okay, of the family. But now one of the strategies the enemy is using today is through this, what I call headship distortion agenda. Okay? There's the masculine distortion agenda, desensitization agenda, there's the headship distortion agenda. The
Unpack the two.
Let me unpack the two.
Yeah.
So let me begin with the masculine
Distortion.
agenda. Okay? I don't know if you're a movie lover, but maybe our viewers are. What is the latest show you've watched that has man or has a couple in it? You see?
I'd have to really think
about it.
Yeah.
Now, let me help you think. Think about how the man is portrayed. Okay? Think about how, if he's a husband, think about how he's portrayed. Okay? You'll realize the man is either domineering or passive, extremely passive, or controlling, or abusive. If he's working, he puts his work first before family. There's no balance. There's no work-life balance. If he's a boss, he's probably having an affair in the office. There's just something off with the man. And in these movies, you'll see that it's the woman who is always stepping up. It's always stepping up. Now, this is not by mistake. It is an agenda.
It's a design.
It's a design. And the agenda is to try to demasculate the man, to try to present man as replaceable, incapable, replaceable. You see? And guess what? Now that is what subconsciously, those are the subliminal messages that we who watch, because the more we are exposed to this, the more we accept the norm. That it's okay, it's normal. So now the young guys who want to get married and they're exposed to this kind of stuff, naturally they think, as a man, you don't have to be aggressive, you don't have to be proactive, you don't have to be active, you don't have to be there, you know, because why? The examples that we see are man is not reliable. It is the woman that will save the day. And this affects even how men view church, how men view spiritual matters. One of the misconceptions is that spiritual matters belong to the women. You see? In the family, when even prayer, Mama Watoto, pray for food, pray for, you know, because spiritual matters in church are for women and children. That is coming from somewhere. It's coming from an agenda that has been portrayed. So that's masculine distortion agenda. The headship distortion agenda, because now it's tied, is this. Right now, the headship, according to God's design, headship of the family is gender-based.
Okay.
That means the man is the head of the family. The man is the leader of the family. So that's gender-based. Okay? But the distortion today is suggesting three things as far as leadership in the family is concerned. Number one, leadership by education. So whoever has the degrees
gets to be the leader.
Has the final say. And so if it happens that my wife is more educated than I am, then she becomes the de facto leader. So we defer to her as the leader of the family. Now that is what is being propagated by the agenda of headship desensitization agenda. All right? Okay. Now, number two is economic leadership by economic power. Whoever earns more
gets to be the leader. I want us to talk about that, but carry on.
Whoever earns more gets to be the leader. Okay. Now, God did not design that the family is based on salary.
True.
Okay?
True.
So, and this has affected family structure in the sense that not only does this happen between spouses, but even children. So you find in families where children are now earning more, they're the ones taking care of the parents, all of a sudden automatically
they call the shots.
So you see children ordering their parents around, you know, because why? They have the financial muscle. And if they have the financial muscles, they make things work.
Money answereth all things.
Money answers all things. And now they assume the leadership role of the family. That is a distortion. The third distortion is leadership by personality. Leadership by personality basically is whoever is more animated has the say. Whoever is more outgoing, the loudest, has the say. And sort of this is the criteria that we've used in schools. You know, when we are selecting prefects and head boys or head girls, you know.
We call them natural leaders.
Natural leaders, yes, because they're outgoing, they're loud, you know. Man, but now when it comes to the family, so when the wife is more outgoing, more animated, does that make her the leader of the family? No. But now these three distortions is what now one way that is attacking the family structure. Because God intended the leadership structure to be man is the leader. So regardless whether he's more educated or not,
he needs to be the leader.
He needs to be the leader. And in the event that the family has, the wife is more educated, that should be a plus for the family. Okay? That should be a plus. So the wife comes along and helps the husband with her wisdom, with her experience, with her knowledge, help the man to lead, but not to take over or compete. You see? Not to take over or compete. If it happens that the wife is earning more, that's a plus for the family. But that will not work if there's this philosophy again in the family, your money is your money, my money is our money. Because there's the element of teamwork that is missing there. There's the element of being one that is missing there. And so these are some of the
distortions and threats to family.
Threats that are, yes, that are a threat to family.
These are such realities.
They
hit home real hard, and I think we are far down in that narrative of the distortions.
Yes.
And we are talking about protecting. How then do we come back to the line?
Yes.
In light of what you have told us as distortions, because what looks as a distortion to the man can also be flipped to the woman stepping up and seeing herself as the leader in a sense, as the one who is calling the shots in a sense, as the one who has the voice in a sense.
Yes.
How do we fix this? How do we protect from these threats?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good question, Kezia. How do we protect? First and foremost, we have to go back to the original blueprint and understand it for what it is, and understand what was God's intention and idea when he created this unit. How did he intend it to work? Because since he's the founder of this institution, then he's better placed to tell us how it ought to work, how it ought to function.
Yeah.
And so we defer to his wisdom in this matter. So that's the first thing. We go back to basics and just basic definition according to God's design. Because one problem with us humans is that when we are too clever for our own good and we think we can do things, we can have it our way, we can establish, we can insert our own terms and conditions and expect it to have the same outcome as God intended it. It doesn't work that way. So the first thing is to go back. And secondly is to evaluate. Okay, and now this is for those who are in the family. Evaluate. How are we doing as a family? What philosophies run, what software runs our marriage? What software runs our family? You see? And begin to ask and mirror ourselves against God's word. Okay? James would say, when you look at your be doers of the word, not just hearers, because the thing is we're good hearers. And I'll tell you, we know many scriptures. We can quote so many scriptures, but how does that translate into the application? Because if we begin to apply, I'm telling you, Kezia, there's so many things that will just solve themselves without us doing so much, because the answers and the solutions and the tools that we need
are all in the Bible.
Are already in the Bible, are already in that manual.
Yeah.
They're already prescribed.
Talking of which, Sunday is the day we come to church. This solution looks like a Sunday grounded solution, but the application is right in the home, because that's where we live our daily lives. Tell us about how do we integrate the role of the church in fixing family and the role of the man or woman. I'm avoiding to get into your way of discussion. The role of either of the members of the members of the family in fixing these very things that we have now become part of. How do we integrate?
First and foremost, the church has its place, because the church is a support system. The church is a community. There's the church, you as an individual, then there's the church collectively as a community. And the church has a place because it's also a place of accountability. Because as humans, we need to have structures of accountability. And church is one of it. And so if you belong to a particular church, the question is, do you subscribe to the values in that church? Do you subscribe to the values of, because every church has, for example, family values, you see, and principles. Do you subscribe to that? That's the first thing. The second thing is, while the church has its role, the church cannot effect them at home. So it comes back to you as the man, you as the wife, to now effect them, because how does this now look like in our family? Because families are different. So applications may be different, but the principles remain the same. The principles are universal. For example, the principle of husbands,
being
love,
leaders.
your wives, you know.
I
Lead
love
the
that
family.
one.
You see? Yes, I know. You know, the principle of wives, submit to your own husbands.
Yeah.
Those applies, those principles remain. The application at home varies different,
yeah,
but the principles remain. So there's the role of the church, but there's the role of the individuals.
Okay.
So the problem is when there's a disconnect. The disconnect is when we view certain values and principles as suggestions rather than commands. That's where the problem is. Because if I view God's word as a suggestion,
I can take it or leave it.
I can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
But if I view it from a place of conviction that this is a command, this is a directive, this is an instruction, then how I effect that is totally different with someone who views them as a suggestion.
I agree.
Yeah.
So does the church have a role in trying to probably give direction on
Yes.
the application
Yes.
at home, and how can this be emphasized and the church be helped to play its role to equip and probably empower the leaders of the family to be able to fix the family at home?
One of the things that the church can be helped is continuous, let me call it continuous education, empowerment as far as policies, government policies is concerned. Because the church needs to be in tune, is in tune rather, with what's happening in the nation, because there are policies that also are affected or implemented or are created as far as family is concerned by the national government that we need to be aware of, so that how do that reflect our faith, because the church is primarily, the church has its constitution, which is primarily the Bible.
Yeah.
You see, so the church being aware of what is happening, what are the legal framework, what is the government, what is the law of the land saying about family, so that it's at par, or rather it's in touch. Because when people live real lives, they also live under the law of the land. So if certain laws of the land affect the values, the stability of the family, the church needs to be in the forefront to stand and to stand and defend based on our first constitution, which is
The Bible. Yeah.
Secondly, the church also, which the church actually is doing, is facilitating trainings, facilitating education-based engagements, that is family-based, you see, so that people are empowered, you know how to live together, how to solve conflict, because conflicts are inevitable.
True.
Where two human beings live. So the church is a good space to help facilitate such things, you know, to help bring harmony, to help to create, so to speak, harmony.
So it's fundamental for the church to be intentional and involved in strengthening families and equipping their congregants, the members, to be able to strengthen families back at home.
Absolutely.
I like this conversation, and I'd like to move to promotion.
Okay.
We've done protection,
Yes.
needs to be protected by the members of the family themselves and the church in terms of policy and governance, and KCPF as well in terms of advocacy and other bodies that are family-centered. But let's talk about promotion. What is promotion of the family?
Promotion simply means being for or standing for, you know,
For the family unit.
For the family unit. And I think you've mentioned one, advocacy. Advocacy is one way to promote the family. And this is also where KCPF is very active, and other pro-family institutions, whereby they are involved in actively in policy making, you know, and even suggesting policies that they believe will be for the welfare of the family. So advocacy is one way, okay, promoting the family. I think the second thing is what we are doing today. So we have a symposium, and this symposium is based on the idea of promoting family values. And so such events helps in promoting and creating awareness of the importance of family. Because as it is, some of the threats, one maybe I haven't mentioned, is there's a constant attack on the need for family. Do we need a family? You know, and if it happens that you want to be in a family, what kind of a family? And so there's all sorts of promotions like same-sex marriages, you know. That's a distortion of a family. And the nuclear family is under attack, you know. And so promoting programs, promoting conversations, such as what we are doing today and here, this is one way of also promoting, creating awareness and reminding people of the original blueprint, you know. Thirdly, I think is also mediation, because the truth is, because of we as humans, we are where two people are, this conflict, there's a lot, people are going through a lot. And so mediation, counseling, coaching, these are ways
of promoting
families, so that when a couple is going through a difficult times,
they have a fallback.
They have a fallback. They have a place they can heal, they can rest, they can be reassured. They have somewhere they can be helped to process and navigate the tough season that they're going through. That's one way
of promoting
family.
I want to give it an interesting twist.
Yes.
The majority of our population right now, the decision-making population, is young people.
Yes.
Africa is a young continent, an average age of 19. These are people that are not yet married, but that are already thinking, considering, making decisions about whether to get married or not. And from what we've heard from the Gen Zs, it could be a rumor, I don't know, but I see it as a threat to family based on what you've said, is they are no longer interested in the family as a unit. They are preferring isolation. Is this a real threat to family? And what's the role of the church, the role of media in creating the right narrative based on the Bible?
Thank you for that question. Let me take you back to relationship number 2 that God gave man, relationship between man and self. The fortitude factor.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was hoping we would discuss that.
The fortitude factor. Okay. So the idea is, man is a relational being with us. Is a relational being with a soul. Okay, in touch with himself. Okay, he has a soul, has a mind, will, and emotion. So he's intrinsically in touch with himself. Okay. Now, what that means that is, man ought to, or rather every one of us, we are, allow me to call it a mandate, because it comes with creation. I have a mandate to build myself, to build a relationship with myself. Now, the right posture is self-acceptance. Okay? But if I happen to deviate, so I would like you to picture with me a pillar that is firmly erected. If I deviate to the left, that is towards deficiency. And if I deviate to the right, that is towards overcompensation. Okay? And they say too much of something is poison.
Dangerous. Poisonous,
okay. So at the functional posture, I am self-aware. I have self-acceptance, okay, as I am. On the deficient side is self-loathing. I loathe myself. This is where I think less of myself, either victim mentality or I don't have a healthy relationship with myself. On the flip of a compensation is self-idolatry.
I'm overinflated.
Yes. This is where I think I am more important than anyone else. Everyone else is beneath me. It's me, myself, and I. See, and this is a deviation, or rather, it's a drift from the original idea of how God meant us to be. Now, how does this affect? How is this even a threat to relationships? One, being in a relationship requires one, that you know yourself in order to lead yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, you can't lead yourself. And if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. Okay? You'll have a skewed perception of others. And so this is one thing that will prevent people from even thinking of having meaningful relationships. Because a meaningful relationship is a relationship that you give of yourself.
Yeah.
It's not more of what's in it for me, what do I get from this relationship. Because the moment, if that's the foundation of you being in a relationship, then that relationship is in trouble. That relationship is in trouble because you'll peg the success of that relationship based on your happiness. Happiness is the metric that measures whether this relationship is. And so the question is, what am I getting from this relationship? How am I getting it? And why am I not the center of attention? And the moment you do that, then thinking about marriage and relationship becomes something very, very, very tricky. Becomes something very, it's misplaced. And because relationship requires commitment. Let me tell you, Kezia, if there's something that can reveal to you who you really are, is a marriage relationship.
I know that.
Absolutely. If you want to know how selfish you are and how patient you are, it's a marriage relationship. And so the level of fortitude, allow me to bring this intergenerational approach, the level of fortitude with our forefathers, let's say my grandfather, my grandmothers, the level of resilience they had back then was so high. Those people went through stuff and they tough it out. They survived what the previous, the next generation, the level of resiliency went down. Absolutely. And so the further we go, the level of resilience goes down.
Does it have anything to do with mentorship?
That's part of it. That's part of it because mentorship basically is transgenerational wisdom transfer.
Yeah.
The question is, how did the previous generation mentor the current generation?
Yeah.
You see, that's part of it. But also because of also changing time, there's a lot that is happening. For example, we live in an instant generation of instant, where things are instant. Back then, before I would have a cup of tea, would have taken 30 minutes to brew one cup of tea. But now, just
5 minutes.
a button, you're saying 5 minutes, 3 minutes, a button, just a few buttons, and I have that. And so that's how we expect to have results in everything, including relationships. Because there are certain things that the principle have not changed. For example, you have to cultivate a relationship. You have to give of yourself in a relationship. And those are things that are now becoming tricky with less resilience, as we can see even so in our generation
How do we
today.
fix this, protect the family, and how do we promote the family unit amongst this generation that you have just defined? You've
mentioned mentorship. That's one key way. Transgenerational wisdom transfer. Mentorship is key. And when I say mentorship is, we need men to mentor men. We need women to mentor women. We need parents to show up for their children, you know, and we need children to subject themselves. And for example, my message to my Gen Zs, because we have a Gen Z, our daughter is a Gen Z, is to subject themselves under mentorship, because it's two-way. Okay? Mentorship may be available, but are you subjecting yourself under mentorship? So it's two-way, because there are certain things that cannot be forced. You know, So mentorship is one way, and this can happen anywhere. This, you can build relationships anywhere, not just only in the church. Church is one avenue, it's one aspect, but mentorship is key. And so the question to you, KZ, here is, do you have people you're mentoring? Are there people who are looking up to you? You know, that's the same question I'm asking myself. Are there people that I know I am mentoring them, and they know
that they are being
mentored, that they're being mentored? So it's not just an assumption. Yes, It's intentional.
Wow.
So intentional mentorship.
Intentional mentorship.
Intentional mentorship.
That is so profound,
Yeah.
because I think we need it for this generation,
Absolutely.
and it's a question I'm taking it upon myself. And I think every viewer who is in a position to mentor,
Yeah.
or who needs mentorship, needs to subscribe to that school of thought, because then it also helps us be accountable as family people, because this young generation, the Gen Zs, have told us that they operate by fear of missing out.
Yes.
It's FOMO. So we need to make family look cool.
Yes.
For them to subscribe to family.
Yes.
And for family to look cool, then we need to be that very substance and be away from the distortions that happen in that sense. So thank you so much. These are very deep insights.
Just one more thing, Kezia, as far as mentorship is concerned. Oftentimes when we think of mentorship, we think of me saying something, me telling you to do something. But actually the one natural way of mentorship is by observation.
Wow.
Okay? So you and your husband, how you relate, you and your children, how you relate with them is also a form of mentorship. So in other words, just like Paul would say, we are letters.
That are being read.
You see? And there are people that you are mentoring without your permission, without your knowledge,
Yeah.
but just them observing you, you see? But them just observing you, and you're mentoring them. So that also means that we need to be conscious of our conduct, our character, because that in itself, our life is a testament and can be used as a tool of mentorship.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we head to wrap up and talking about mentorship, you have authored a book
Yes.
that is called Activated Husband, Unmasking and Conquering 6 Portraits of Dysfunction in Husbandhood.
Yes.
Tell us about this book.
Thank you very much. So this activated husband is, the word activated was inspired from a personal experience as a husband, whereby I was passive. And allow me to create a backdrop of this.
Yeah.
One of the reasons, let me take you back. One of the reasons Adam failed was that he was passive. Okay? He didn't speak when it mattered. Have you ever asked yourself, what if Adam didn't eat that fruit that Eve brought?
Actually, say I'll ask him in heaven, because
Yes.
it has cost us a lot of trouble.
That man must be he must be in a witness protection program or something, you know? But something interesting that happened was that man was there, he was the leader, but he didn't speak.
He was passive.
He was passive. He was silent when it mattered. And then he listened. And actually, he paid for it. He paid for it in Genesis 3. Something happened, let me mention. God initiated something called Adamic Covenant. Okay, the participants were the snake, Satan, Eve, and Adam. And to all of them, he gave them provisions. Okay, the provisions of that Adamic covenant as a consequence. The snake, there were 3. He mentioned that because you've done this, cursed are you above all animals. So the curse of despise. The second one, you will crawl on your belly, curse of deformity. And you shall eat dust all your life, the curse of disgrace. Okay, that is to the snake. To the serpent, 3 again. The curse of enmity says, I'll put enmity between you and the woman. Okay? The second one was the curse of defeat. Okay? His seed will strike your heel, you will strike his heel, and he will crush your head. And then the third one is the curse of eternal death. At the end of it all, Satan will be thrown in the lake of fire. Now to Eve, God said, I will multiply your pain. Okay? So 4 things. The way of women, painful menstrual cycle, the way of reproduction, painful childbirth.
Yeah.
Okay? Then thirdly, the way of relation. Your desire shall be for your husband, which means you will desire to control him. You will desire to tell him what to do and how to do and when to do, with whom to do. You desire to tell him that. But he shall dominate over you, shall rule over you. Okay? And then fourthly, the way of significance. The way of significance, this is tied into motherhood. Okay? But then it says, but in that provision, there's a promise that is infused with a future that is tied into motherhood. Okay? And actually, that's one of the threats and attacks the enemy also uses to attack the family through what we call motherhood. That's why they're pushing so hard with abortion policies, pushing so hard with anti-creation relationships, lesbianism, gayism, you know, and all that. So, way of significance that childbirth, you giving birth will remove you from that demeaning posture. And that's why when a woman gives birth, she becomes so...
She's also born.
She's born.
Reborn. Yeah.
And her worth goes up, so to speak. Because if you compare with women who unfortunately have not had babies, you can see what they've gone through. Okay. Then to Adam, God said, because you listened to your wife. So which means he shouldn't have listened, but because you listened to your wife, he said 4 things. Okay? And that's why it's part of this book. 4 things. He said, burden of blame. Adam took the blame. The buck stopped with him, even though it's Eve who ate. And Paul will say in 2 Timothy that it is the woman who sinned. But the buck stopped with Adam. The burden of blame. The second is the burden of survival. Man was not going to hustle to survive. But God says, cursed is the ground because of you. Thirdly is the burden of performance. This is where now man, by the sweat of your brow you shall eat. Man up to now is defined by what he brings on the table. And that's why when sisters are meeting and chit-chatting and talking about their boyfriends and husbands, the question that often comes out is, what does he do?
No, you've not been to a sister's meeting.
I know these things. One of the first questions they ask, what does he do? In other words, this is to establish value. And it's as a result of that. So man his value was going to be based on what he does, what he provides. And if he doesn't, his values goes low or goes down. Now remember, this is Adamic covenant. This is not the new covenant. And that's the reality because that's what we are living with. And then the fourth one is the burden of death. He said, dust you are,
dust you shall
return. And not only that, in as much as man brought in death to the human race, something else interesting here. The mortality rate of men
is higher.
Very high. And throughout history, man has always been at men die faster. More men die than women. And it's just that fact. Now, this book, that passive, so activated is the opposite of passive. And that's what inspired. And I have unmasked 6 portraits of dysfunction. Because you can't change what you can't confront, and you can't confront what you don't know. And so I've unmasked how does dysfunction looks like in husbandhood in order to transition now to the place of activation.
Okay.
Yes.
I want people to buy the book, so I don't want you to give them more snippets into what is in it, but where can they find it?
They can find it at Nuria Bookstore. Online, yes.
Okay.
Nuria Bookstore, it's at Bazaar Plaza in town. Yes.
Oh, nice. And online also?
Yes, and online.
Thank you. How much does the book go for?
It goes for 1,500.
1,500.
Yes.
Very nice book for husbands. I think every man who is a husband, an aspiring husband, needs to get their hands on it so that we just do it right and we portray the right image for the family. So as we conclude, there is this family symposium that is happening.
Yes.
What can we expect from the family symposium? Where is it happening? And how can people just participate in this very important forum?
The family symposium is currently happening as we speak at Sitam Valley Road. And it's from 9 to 5 p.m. And we've lined up speakers that will speak on various issues from policy to roles in the family. And we have workshops, so we have plenary sessions and workshops. And it's a day packed with a lot of what I would call transformative sessions. Yes.
Okay.
And it's not, if you have not signed up yet, it's not too late. You can come. Just come at the gate, come in and join us. Yeah.
And we encourage as many of us that can make it for this forum to
Yes.
attend
Yes.
and participate. The family is core, the family is important, the family is a foundation. Jesus Christ calls himself, he will come for his bride, who is the church, again portraying the image of the family. God is called God our Father. There cannot be a father without a family unit. So the family is core to our Christian values and our foundation at that. So thank you very much. We will end it here. Thank you very much for Titus for pouring wisdom.
Thank
You
you.
have a lot of wisdom. I think we should get you on the show another time and craft a topic around so many things that we've talked about, but we've just touched, and you have a lot to offer on that. Thank you for giving your wisdom also in the book, and we believe that you're a resource to the kingdom of God in matters family
Glory to
and
God.
in many other matters, and we are just grateful. Thank you for allowing yourself to be here.
Thank you for having
And
me.
thank you, viewers, for being with us on the show. We wish you a blessed weekend and a good day. Thank you.